November 6, 2013, almost 3 years after the events of that terrible night in Phoenix, Rob Fisher got his first look at the jury that would decide his fate. When we spoke to him before the trial began, he was, in a word, optimistic.
So if I'm a betting man, where should I put my money?
I remain really optimistic that I will be either acquitted or this case will be dismissed. I believe that, and I would put your money on me.
Lee Rader's family was counting on the jury, too, for quite the opposite result.
Will we ever find out what happened? Truthfully, I don't know. Do I want somebody to pay for his death? Yes.
This case is about a cover-up.
Prosecutor Jay Rademacher began by telling the jury that Lee Rader did not commit suicide.
Lee loved his family, especially his girls. Lee would have never done something like this inside of his home.
This is Lee's childhood best friend who told the jury Lee never got depressed over money issues.
You know, one of his favorite sayings to me that I've tried to be motivated by is just, Adam, you can always make more money.
Besides, said the prosecutor, in December 2010, Lee believed he was about to hit pay dirt. Lee's business partner told the jury about the conversation they had just hours before Lee's death.
And we were ready to go. I mean, we were charged up.
How was Lee acting at the end of your phone call with him?
He was happy. He said he had family over. He was going to go have a couple cocktails, and he'd call me tomorrow.
The state called Belinda, Lee's wife, now in the clear, no longer a suspect, but a reluctant witness, not at all convinced that her stepdad was a murderer.
That's what Rob had said, that he had committed suicide. And so that's what I felt my truth to be.
And yet she told the jury, that night, Lee seemed, well, like the same old Lee.
How did he appear to you?
Just like a regular night.
Nothing was different.
Not that I recall.
So Lee had no reason to commit suicide, said the prosecutor. No, the only possible explanation was that Lee was murdered. His theory? As Lee Rader and Rob Fisher sat at the kitchen table drinking vodka into the wee hours of that morning, something must have happened. Something that so aroused Rob, he went and got his gun, came back, shot Lee through the right eye, and then panicked and went about staging the scene.
The science doesn't lie. People do.
In fact, the arriving officer told the jury about those red flags he saw as soon as he spotted the gun in Lee's hand.
To me, it appeared that it was placed in his hand.
How is gravity not taking its course from either pulling Lee's body forward or allowing that gun to drop out of his hand? If he shot himself, how would the gun remain in his hand?
But it doesn't really work with Robert putting the gun in his hand either, does it? This is an ex-cop we're talking about.
An ex-cop that's drunk.
There was more. The sergeant thought it was suspicious that Rob washed his hands, even after being told not to.
And he said, hey, I'm a sorry, police officer. I said, okay, just step away. He says, I'm going to wash my hands. He said, no, don't wash your hands.
Rob's apparent drunken confusion about who was actually dead? Pure theater, said the prosecutor.
The defendant knew that was Lee on the ground, but he's trying to cover up a murder.
Evidence of a cover-up? In his first interview, Rob said he'd been sleeping in the guest bedroom when the shot was fired. But as the prosecutor told the jury, Rob was in fact sitting right at the kitchen table with Lee. How could he know that? Well, for one thing, the guest bed didn't look slept in. And also, there were 2 glasses in the kitchen which still contained unmelted ice, suggesting, of course, that both men were awake and drinking around 5 a.m.
Did you find it odd that there was ice in the glasses at 5:15 in the morning?
Yes.
And then the key piece of the prosecution's case, the blood spatter expert.
Mr. Fisher moved Mr. Rader's body and manipulated the area to make it look like Mr. Rader had sustained a shot and it had fell backwards.
The expert demonstrated for the jury how, after Lee was shot, his body would have slumped forward in the chair, not backward, the way he was found. So Rob must have moved Lee's body onto the ground, which accounts, said the expert, for the blood droppings on the floor.
I believe I think he just dragged him onto the ground.
So the forensics said murder. But why would he do it? What possible motivation did he have? No idea, said the prosecutor. There's no evidence of a disagreement between the two of them. There's nothing like that.
No.
But that wasn't the issue, he said. Hard evidence was.
When you start putting all the pieces together, you only get one explanation, and that's murder.
Oh, but that wasn't quite true. There was a second explanation, and the jury was about to hear it.
Coming up, the defense presents its own scientific evidence, arguing there's no way Rob Fisher could have been Lee's killer.
His fingerprints weren't on the gun, his DNA wasn't on the gun, and Lee's was.
Well, what did that say to you?
Lee was the last one that handled the gun.